people know that this guy was a pedophile. It's the only way to describe him. He died in the 1990s, but basically what they're saying to me is, even though we know he was a pedophile, even though we know he attacked you, even though he was in full naval uniform, we're not giving you anything. You can live with it because it did not happen on naval property. And that, I think, is absolutely wrong. I mean, seriously? He was in naval uniform. He ran a training ship up in Newcastle where most of the guys were victims of his pedophilia. I even had this idiot turn up at my place and go around the back to talk to my mother. And I turned around and told her that he was a poof. Sorry for the language, but that's how it was back in the day. And I wanted nothing to do with him. I then ran from my place all the way to the shops in the suburb I lived in. And turns out he drove down there. He had a panel van and he had 6 guys from the place in Newcastle in the back of his van, and they all went looking for me. So I had to spend the next 2 hours dodging and weaving around my suburb so these guys didn't get me. And everybody I spoke to about it didn't want to know about it. And there was a couple of problems with the kids because they were really missing their mum. It was about 5 years after their mum had passed as well. And Karen was really great for that. One of the problems of being autistic is you cannot just walk up and put your arm around somebody, right? You can't walk up and just hug somebody. You know, if somebody walks up to me and hugs me, I'll go stiff as a board. Karen was the only one who could do that. And Karen was the only one who could if the kids have a problem, my answer is like, what's the problem? Tell me what the problem is, we'll sort it out. Whereas Karen would do the motherly thing and go, look, come here, let's have a chat, find out what's going on. I can't do that. So I got hold of Relationships Australia, have a yarn to them about it. And somebody brought up something or other and it triggered what happened to me at 15. And then from there, they put well, you need to talk to somebody else. So they put me on the name wall. And like I said, from there, eventually I found Renee and explained it to her. And she's like, no, that shouldn't happen. But by then, it was already running back through my head again. I said to Renee quite a few times, I'd love to find out if this bastard's still alive. I said, because I will drive up there and I will drive him into the ground, you know, for what he did to me. And he got away with it. And now he's getting away with it again. And the Navy is condoning this sort of behaviour. Because what's to stop somebody else, whether they're a seaman, whether they're an officer, doesn't matter. But they now know that even if they're in full uniform, as soon as they're off Navy property, they can go and become pedophiles and do what they bloody well like because the Navy won't do a damn thing about it. Yeah. Okay, and that just opened up the floodgates. And then I got given the name of, actually it started off with Relationships Australia, who then put me in contact with No More, who then ended up putting me in contact with somebody else, who then ended up putting me in contact with Renee. And it was Renee who got most of the story out of me and said, well, yeah, we need to do the redress scheme. That's what this scheme is for this exact sort of thing. And I thought, great, finally, I can get some closure on it because it's been buried for half a century. And whilst the wife was alive, things weren't too bad, you know, because she was the little centre of my universe. She was my yin to my yang. But then after she left, things started going apart. I had nobody I could sort of rely on. And then when this all came up, things got even worse. And I had to keep on dredging up bits and bits. As I said to Renee quite a few times, you know, I'd come in here and I'd had really bad dreams, or I'd remembered something that I thought I had totally forgotten about. You know, like I didn't even remember it when I thought I'd told her everything about it. You know, things like I forgot that he photographed me, right? Totally forgot about that altogether. Didn't really tell Renee about him chasing me around the streets of my suburb for a couple more weeks.
And he's got legitimate evidence, and there was police files on it, and there was a inspector involved in the previous. So supposedly, the pedophile in this case, he was known to the police and either died in police custody or the police are aware of his death. So regardless, he was charged at some point, but we don't know for what, and we should have been advised about that because that then would have assisted his case. So the police should have assisted his case, but they didn't. So at each and every stage, the government has not supported us. They've not supported the claim, despite they say come forward. And I've been shocked and appalled because I've assisted other people, not through redress. This is the first time I've gone all the way through with redress, and I've been appalled at how Stuart has been treated. I can't believe it. So I've been vicariously traumatized by this process. Yeah. And in addition to that, I want to talk to, we all have DNA. And so what Stuart started with was about his daughters and his children, you know, so he's got three kids, and all three of them have health issues. And I believe it's because, I mean, I can talk to this personally, but that's a kind of other kind of thing. I'm just focusing on professionally here. But I know personally and professionally, genes and DNA gets changed because of trauma.
Yeah.
Okay. And so Stuart's children have more issues than him.
Wow.
And they can't get NDIS properly. There's all sorts of other issues. We are talking level after level after level of trauma and medical and health and alternative health issues, like whether it's, you know, in Stuart's case, he's got dental issues, lung issues, you know, we're talking about, you know, issues related to his autism. You know, he's a fully functioning human being, but he just wants to be treated with some respect. Really.
I mean, you can't keep on treating people like this. I have been told for 4 years, yes, you have a case. Yes, this should not have happened. Yes, you deserve this. And I'm thinking, well, that's great, because then I can do, like I said, my teeth, I can sort out some stuff for the kids. We can just try and just get ahead a little bit and pull ourselves up out of where we are. And then to be turned around and told, oh, no, you don't qualify because it didn't happen on Navy grounds, is just absolute and utter BS. And I would dearly love to meet the people that made this decision for a face-to-face and just see how they will go telling me to my face that it did not deserve, that I don't deserve anything or any sort of closure out of this at all. Yeah.
It was pretty bad, the letter that we got into. It was like, Dear Stuart, but it was so bad that no one even put their name to it. So
that seems very common though today, though, don't you think, Renee? No one wants to own up to the decisions.
But so there's literally no one who will own that they made this improper decision. They actually even acknowledged it happened, but that they can't do it because of all these technicalities. And that he could appeal. But the problem is, as his therapist, I always have to recommend no appeal. This is important for all the viewers to hear and all that, is because it will rip him apart again.
Yeah.
It's actually recommended now not to. What I want to appeal to everyone who's listening to this, if anyone has been impacted by the Navy, by pedophilia or any kind of sexual harassment or sexual assault, I think Stuart needs to meet with those people, contact him through me. You can find me, Renee
I'll put
McDonald.
your details
on there. Just Renee McDonald for the sake of this. And we need to actually come forward with this as potentially a class action or something like that
they
later
need to change how they do the whole system. As far as I'm concerned, if you're attacked by a person who works in an organisation, it does not matter whether that happened at that organisation or somewhere else. The fact of the matter was, he left the Navy yard. He drove up to Wollongong, where I was at the Naval Cadets. I was in a Naval Cadet uniform. He was in his able seaman's uniform. He then lied to me to get me into the car and then attacked me once we got out of Wollongong.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Health Alliance Australia's podcast. My name is Jeannie Rose Angewartha, and today we welcome Stuart and his support person, Renee. Now, Stuart is a victim of crime, and he was on the NDIS. He has recently lost funding, which is terribly sad. He has high functioning autism, and he has a really important story to tell. So Welcome, Stuart. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
Now,
But
where would you like to start with your story? I mean, it's regarding something regarding the medical side of things.
where do you start with the medical side of things? I've had that many run-ins with the area health services and that, lately that it's beyond a joke. In 2020, I had a daughter that had an aneurysm, but because she'd had a bad pregnancy years ago and spent literally every day being very nauseous, the acid from being nauseous ruined the enamel on her teeth. So after a few years, the public health dentist took all of her teeth out. She got put on the waiting list. In 2020, she suffered a massive aneurysm. She went to Wollongong Hospital, where they kept her off to one side for 24 hours because they just took one look that she had no teeth in her head and just went, "You're a meth head."
Oh, no.
So for 24 hours, we got no help for her whatsoever. Eventually, we spoke to a different doctor who decided, why haven't they sent her for a CT scan? So they sent her for a CT scan. 15 minutes later, she was in the toll helicopter being flown up to Sydney for emergency brain surgery for a 9.5 mil by 5.5 mil aneurysm that had burst. And it's just gotten worse from there. I mean, the medical professions nowadays, there's a part at the start there that says, we do no harm. And yet they do not listen to it. The latest episode I had with them was, again, the daughter with the aneurysm went to Wollongong Hospital 2 weeks ago, or last week on the Monday, and one of her problems was she kept on slipping in and out of it. She was getting sleepy, nodding off. A male nurse came up and put his thumb and finger onto the shoulder bone up there, where your parents used to sort of dig their thumb in, create a little bit of pain to wake her up. Well, she woke up and that little mongrel kept the pain on. He kept the pressure on. So she knocked his hand away. She screamed in pain. She burst into tears. And I turned around to him and said, "You ever assault my daughter like that again?" I said, "I'll break your arm." And I went outside for a fag. 2 minutes later, I've got the nurse unit manager and 4 security guards surrounding me, having a go at me for having a go at that bloke. And I was told I had no right to interfere because I'm not a nurse. I'm not a medical professional. Well, I'm sorry. I happen to be a martial artist. And that move that guy did is a pressure point move. And nursing staff are not taught on pressure point moves. Keeping it on her until she woke up was quite legal. Keeping it on her after she woke up is assault. And that's what I told him. I even want to take a photo of the 4 of them, only to have the nurse unit manager snatch my camera out of my hand, which I class as theft, because it turns out, even though it's a public hospital, you are not allowed to take pictures in a public hospital without their prior permission. But there's no signs up there that says that at the entrance. We weren't even inside the hospital. We were outside on the grounds. I just wanted video evidence of the way these 5 were treating me. In fact, out of the 5, the only security guard that did his job properly was the worst one. The guy that looked like he should never even been doing security. He'd be lucky to run 20 feet before he had a heart attack. But the other 3, all they wanted to do was arc up at me. And as far as I'm concerned, I've had enough of this. I mean, it goes beyond the joke with what they do. I'm an asthmatic. I got told 6 years ago I would die because I wouldn't get a certain shot. And I have put up with crap ever since then. I grow my hair long because I got told I couldn't go to a barber's, but I could go to the pub to get a beer. And if I stood up, I had to wear a mask. And if I sat down, I didn't have to wear one. And I can't wear a mask. I saw 4 different doctors to get an exemption. Every doctor told me they could not give me an exemption. Yet if I put a mask on, it triggers an asthma attack, which is bad for my health. And it just goes on and on and on. And then with all this going on, we had the problem with the redress scheme that I applied for something terrible that happened when I was 15. But because it didn't happen on naval property, they won't come to the party on it. They absolutely refused to, despite the fact that it started off at HMAS Albatross.
Yeah.
The guy arrived where I was at TS Albatross in Wollongong in full naval uniform because he just finished work at Albatross and was heading to Newcastle. And he was going to work up at Newcastle at another training ship. And to me, that is absolutely ridiculous. These people know that this guy was a pedophile. It's the only way to describe him. He died in the 1990s, but basically what they're saying to me is, even though we know he was a pedophile, even though we know he attacked you, even though he was in full naval uniform, we're not giving you anything. You can live with it because it did not happen on naval property. And that, I think, is absolutely wrong. I mean, seriously? He was in naval uniform. He ran a training ship up in Newcastle where most of the guys were victims of his pedophilia. I even had this idiot turn up at my place and go around the back to talk to my mother. And I turned around and told her that he was a poof. Sorry for the language, but that's how it was back in the day. And I wanted nothing to do with him. I then ran from my place all the way to the shops in the suburb I lived in. And turns out he drove down there. He had a panel van and he had 6 guys from the place in Newcastle in the back of his van, and they all went looking for me. So I had to spend the next 2 hours dodging and weaving around my suburb so these guys didn't get me. And everybody I spoke to about it didn't want to know about it. The problem with my Asperger's is it wasn't something, back in the day, if you had any form of autism, it was generally level 3 or level 2. Nothing about level 1. I was only known as basically a smart ass with a big mouth. Because although highly intelligent, I am very blunt. I'm one of those old style guys that calls a spade a spade. And unfortunately, people don't like it. And it wasn't until I was in my 60s that I finally got a diagnosis as to what was wrong with it. You know? I mean, I've worked with people where I got sacked 2 weeks before Christmas because I had asthma. Seriously, 2 weeks before Christmas. And that was a relative that sacked me. Yeah. I've had other places where I've gone into work and been told, no, it's just not working out because the other guys just don't gel with you. Yeah, it's been discrimination upon discrimination, and now I get the NDIS turn around and tell me, no, you don't need any funding. Every time I ask them for something, I get told, no, that's not available. They tell me I can get a notebook type computer because I've got a computer at home, a laptop, but it's just 10 years old. And it is cheaper to buy a laptop than it is to buy a notepad. But they tell me, no, you can't have the laptop. You can only have the notebook. It makes no sense. I wanted to do something else, and they told me, no, you can't do that. But, you know, you can hire somebody to take you out for a walk or something like that. I don't do that sort of stuff, right? I have been on my own for so long that I just don't trust them anymore. And besides that, I don't want a friend that I have to pay for. That is ridiculous. You know, you shouldn't have to pay for friends. But the whole thing is just getting out of control now at the moment. Yeah, I cannot get any satisfaction from the NDIS, which is literally throwing a big spanner in the works. I mean, Renee was one of the few people I could actually talk to about what's happening and get a better understanding from her on it, because I look at things differently. Right? It's the same as when our little friend appeared in 2020. I was stunned that somebody could make a vaccine in less than 3 months. My brain just didn't gel with that. So I started to look around and I started finding things that MSM in Australia, legacy media, would not report on. So I started to verify them. I started coming up with stuff and I just went, no, we're not doing it. And I haven't yet. Everybody I know that's done it has had a problem. And yet I still get looked at as if I'm the idiot, which is not right. And then to top it all off, the problem with the pedophile, which I was hoping to resolve because that opened up a lot of wounds that I thought I had buried. And now I've got him every night. Every night before I go to bed, I see that mongrel's bloody face in my vision. I had bad dreams about it. And now the Navy turns around and goes, oh, but because it didn't happen on Navy property, tough bickies, which is absolutely wrong. This guy was a pedophile. The police knew he was a pedophile. I'm of the strong belief that he was part of the Frank Harkel, Tony Bevan pedophile network that ran in the Wollongong area. And he was telling me how he could do this and he could do that and he could do the other. I wasn't interested in any of that. And the only reason he showed up where I was at the Naval Cadet Station was because when we were at HMAS Albatross doing a Naval Airman's course, our dormitory room was straight across the room or the hallway from where his guys were staying. And we heard noises coming from there, and we opened up the door, and they were all in bed with each other.
Wow.
So somebody went up the hall, grabbed the hose, and turned it on the bloody lot of them. But that was all pushed under the carpet and hushed. And then a week after we finished down there, he rocks up to where I'm walking home from the Naval Training Station and said he was there to explain to me what that was all about. And he's in full naval uniform. I'm 15 years old. I'm autistic. I haven't actually learnt to read people at that stage properly. I didn't trust my gut instincts. He offered me a lift home so we could discuss things. And instead he took me up into the bloody bush and did other things. And there's no recourse back from it. You know,
Well, you can't.
I can't get him.
Pursuing criminal charges against this man.
Well, he's dead.
Oh.
That's the problem. He died in the 1990s. What happened was when I started going through, this is when I hooked up with Renee. Renee did a bit of checking and found out that this guy died in the 1990s, but he was well known to the police.
So how long was it after? So how old were you when he died?
15. Oh, sorry. When he died, I would have been, well, probably in my 30s. It was probably 15 years or so thereabouts after he passed.
So you didn't,
him and I had our first training.
Seeking any justice before that because of the trauma?
Yeah, I just shut down completely. Besides that, I told my mother. She didn't believe me. Her and my father were divorced, and my old man's a Scotsman. And he did not take anything like that whatsoever. As far as he's concerned, he had kids. Well, he didn't really want them. So his main thing was go out and work, come back home. Go out and work, come back home. He wanted to know nothing about it. And the same went with uncles and aunties. Because I was always considered a smart ass with a big mouth, none of them wanted to believe me either. You know, so I buried it. I found the woman, fell in love. We had 3 wonderful kids. And I thought that was it. And she passed away 10 years ago, unfortunately. And then things just started going out of control. She was the yin to my yang. It's a little bit hard to explain it, but sometimes autistic people need somebody they can anchor to. You know, somebody you can talk to and you can relax around. Otherwise, you're always worried that somebody's going to say something to you. I can be in a room and having a conversation with 3 other people and somebody else will just walk in and talk over the top of me and nobody cares about it. That is just rude, but that is how low I am on the scale. In fact, I'll give you a better one. I've been doing martial arts for over 35 years. I had the chance to go to a tournament 2 years ago. I got told they will pick me up and take me up to Newcastle. We'll do the tournament for the weekend and they will bring me back. No need to worry about where you're going to stay. So I arranged to have my dogs looked after by my daughter. I then went home and waited for them to pick me up on the Friday. At 2 a.m. on the Saturday morning with tears in my eyes, I suddenly realised they were not going to pick me up. Now, I've known most of these guys for anywhere from 20 to 30 odd years. So I would assume, well, they're going to ring me up and let me know that they forgot to pick me up. So they didn't ring me on the Friday, obviously. They didn't ring me on the Saturday. They didn't ring me on the Sunday. In fact, it was 12 days later when I went back to the class, threw on my belt and walked off. And then somebody came around and said, oh, look, we're sorry about that. But I mean, 12 days later is absolutely ridiculous, you know, and none of them understand the impact that has on somebody like me. It's like the Navy. They seem to think, oh, this did not happen in on a naval base. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. The guy was in a naval uniform. He's working at a naval air station. He's also got access to children at a training ship, and he's committing pedophilia. Just because he was in his own car, he just left your place of employment and was heading back up to Newcastle to where he could commit more pedophilia and happened to just drop in and grab me at the same bloody time. And yet they turn around and tell me that because of that, there's no ending for it in sight. There's no conclusion. You know, so this is just going to be an open wound that will keep on festering and festering and festering. I've got to admit, I have known gay people over the years, but the majority of gay people I know are only interested in other people their age or thereabouts, well over 18, right? And what they do in the bedroom is absolutely their business, as long as it doesn't impact in our personal life. I don't really care. And I've gotten on quite well with them. But pedophiles like this idiot, the Navy has basically turned around to me, as far as I'm concerned, and gone, we don't care if we've got pedophiles in our ranks. We don't care if they attack people that are, or naval cadets that are in a naval air station that have come down to our property to do a naval airman's course. We don't care if one of our pedophilia seamen end up with him. You know, and that to me is wrong. That is totally wrong. There is no place in this world for pedophilia. End of story. You know, I mean, it's just not right. And all that does is screw me up. I no longer have the missus with me that I can talk to. I no longer have funding, so I can't really talk to Renee about it. So all I can do is sit at home because I don't work. I have no friends. I can't get access to anything else. And all I do is sit around, and it just goes round and around and around. And with Asperger's, you will actually go through all these different scenarios that, well, maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. You know, it becomes like, you end up feeling like the flu-boo bird. Right? Don't know if you've ever heard the flu-boo bird.
It seems to be a history of a pattern of cover-up. It wasn't, and they obviously thought that you were a soft target and that you would not raise the alarm.
Yeah, well, the thing is,
because they
when
bullied you.
people are autistic, you pick up on it. It's a little bit like, how's the best way to describe it? You've heard of people being able to read auras, okay?
Yeah.
Where they say they can see a blue aura around this person or a green aura around there. I believe the same thing happens with autism, but I believe it's more, we're all electrical beings. We all put off an electrical charge. Anything that's electric puts off an electromagnetic charge. Now, most normal people put off the same charge. Autistic people, because our brains are wired up slightly differently, particularly those with Asperger's, and to give you a prime example, Elon Musk is another one with Asperger's because Billy Gates tried to have a go at him over it. He threatened to sue him. Gates shut his mouth quick smart. But we look at things differently. We put off a different pattern. I can be walking down the road and people will make way for me because there's something wrong, but we can't see what it is wrong. So automatically they assume that you've got a serious mental hang-up. Not realising I've got an IQ of over 130. I could probably do their job if I got taught it 2 or 3 days. Not a problem in the world. But it doesn't happen that way. And the fact that you're blunt, nowadays, try being blunt nowadays and see where it gets you. Yeah? One of the last jobs I had, one of the reasons I lost it was because I kept having goes at them because I was doing security on a construction site and kids kept breaking in and climbing up into the tower cranes. You know those massive big cranes that'll tower 5, 8 stories high? That is a danger. And I turned around to the people that ran the place and told them, this is what you need to do. Well, pretty soon I found myself out of work and they were putting Indians on at $17 an hour cash in hand. And I was on $34 an hour plus benefits. Yeah? All because I had the height to turn around them and say that nowadays, if you have an opinion, unless it's with what the majority think, you're an idiot. Yeah? And if you don't follow what they're doing, you're an even bigger idiot. And it's just getting beyond the joke. I mean, the Navy had no right to treat me like that. I had tried to bury that. And then I was told, no, you need to bring it out. You need to let them know. And so we did. We started off the redress scheme. But when we started off, it turns out that the lady I was talking to left. Another lady came on and couldn't find the file, so I had to go through it all over again. And then she left. And somebody else lost the file. I had to go through it all over again. Poor Renee's probably spent nearly 2 years of us doing this redress scheme thing, making sure everything was down. And then for them to turn around and knock it back on its head. And one of the reasons why I think they did that was because they told us probably 2 years ago that it would take about 12 months. And it never happened. So we started to ring up about it. And then I turned around to Renee and said, tell them if they don't do something about it soon, I'm going to go see a lawyer. So Renee mentioned that to them. Well, a week later, we get this little thing going, your redress scheme's been, not approved. you get nothing. So tough bickies to you. You know, these people have no idea of what sort of an impact that has on a person, particularly when you're a 15-year-old and you don't have any friends. You can't talk to anybody about it. I mean, the only option you've got left is either bury it or go mad. You know? And I don't need to go mad.
And I certainly, I think there's a level of discrimination there that is self-evident in society. If you don't fit the right mold, you know, you're the politically correct
that's exactly
mold.
right. I am different.
I mean, Stuart, you remind me of someone that is roughly about your age, like 78. Like my father-in-law sort of, maybe not as rough around the edges, but that was a sort of generation of men that would speak their mind.
I was always brought up, try and be honest. You call a spade because that's only you telling the truth, right? You don't cover things up with fairly white stuff and that, you know, to make it easier. You know, I understand occasionally there's a necessity to tell a white lie to not cause pain to somebody else. You know, like you do with your kids and stuff like that. You know, when they hurt themselves, you go, oh, that's not too bad. Meanwhile, in your head, you go, geez, I'm not sure if that needs stitches or not. You know, that sort of thing I can live with, but not with what they do nowadays to you. You know, you walk into a place, I get these weird looks. The worst thing about it is reopening the redress scheme just made me even more, what's the word I'm looking for? More conservative in going out. Okay? I mean, if the Navy's not going to believe me, then what the hell's happening with the Navy? Right? If they think it's okay for a pedophile to exist in their ranks and then not do anything about it, nothing's been told to me what happened with that other training ship because this guy used to be there every weekend. So the Naval Cadet Station up near Newcastle has got a lot of kids that were either done like I was and have either fallen by the wayside or become pedophiles themselves. Because that generally
like a bastardization sort of initiation process almost into the Navy. Do you think, Renee?
Yeah, but it's just wrong how they can do it. I mean, if I went somewhere,
like getting these people in and then abusing them to initiate them into the cult, so that they will. Yeah, but you didn't. Be part of that.
It's just weird. How you can turn around and say that hasn't affected somebody or somebody is not entitled to something because of that's happened. That my brain just cannot gel around that bit. Right? I've seen plenty of cases where Joe Blow, the politician, somebody turned around to him and said, oh, you've got an ugly snout. And he gets awarded $100,000 in compo because somebody used hurty words on him. You know? And yet mine wasn't hurty words. But believe you me, it was hurting. And yet I get told that, no, you don't, there's a bugger all about it whatsoever. And the only other way I can try and do something is to go through a lawyer, but then I run the risk of having to pay lawyer fees and that, which is something I cannot afford, not on a pension, which cracks me up with the NDIS. They take me off the NDIS, but they leave me on the disability support pension. I mean,
so
I'm not
managed to find anyone else that was there that would like join together in your story, in the story that you're sharing here today.
No, I don't know what happened to any of those guys. I only know one of the guys, I can remember his name from down here, and he joined the Navy. But I tell you what, if somebody tried something like that on him, he probably would have put his fist through their bloody face. But as for the guys up in Newcastle, the last time I saw them was when they were all running around my suburb looking for me to take back to the van. So that's why I did the bulk for 2 hours. I was hiding around in a public school. I was bolting into people's backyards every time I seen one of them coming. That went on for 2 hours. There was no point going back home because I figured he'll end up back there again. And Mum doesn't seem to worry about the fact that I told her that he was gay, and I wanted nothing to do with him. And there was nowhere else I could go to. Old man didn't want to borrow me. I have no friends, so you're left on your own. And that has a big psychological impact on you when you are trying to keep away from people you know that have got it in for you. You know what's going to happen because I'd already got done by him once beforehand. And now it looks like he wants the same thing to happen. But this time he brought a few friends with him as well. And every one of these kids would have been underage as well. Yet There was never any inquiry into any of that sort of stuff. You know, it's a bit like down here. We all know that Frank Arkell and Tony Bevan had a pedophile network going. What happened to it? Where are the people? What's happened to the victims? Who else was involved in it? Because there was more than those two involved in it. And yet, nothing's been done. It's been covered up. I don't know whether the Navy said no to this simply because everybody involved is now dead, so therefore there's no one to be able to say anything to, or whether they've just decided, nah, you're an autistic man, mate. We don't give a shit about you. Off you go. You know?
I mean, with the redress,
I don't fit the DEI profile that they
yeah,
like
I mean,
nowadays.
maybe I don't know. It doesn't seem to matter anyway. With you know, I kind of fell into this world many years ago because we were buying milk from a local farmer who was also a counsellor of 20 years and good friends with a very well-known Prime Minister of Australia. We were buying milk from him, and we ended up getting reported for buying milk, even though he was a convicted pedophile. And this was, and then we ended up getting our children interrogated by Child Protection. And not once did the police go and interview him and say, well, Bill, you know, what are you doing? You're selling raw milk? No one shut the raw milk business down because he was well known in town. And in fact, he died, I think 2020 or something like that. So it's interesting. It's a very similar story. There's certain people in society that are protected, and the ones that speak out. And I think for myself, having experienced the town, so we ended up getting a note after Child Protection interviewed all our children to make sure that me buying milk wasn't going to somehow endanger them. Not that, you know, that he should have been interviewed. After that, our real estate agent found out and decided they were going to throw back our case to the owners at the time, which was the Catholic Church, because they didn't want the file because they thought we would sue them. And I ended up getting a notice to vacate. So, and then when in experiencing that in this small town and the sort of nastiness, like here we were total victims of this. And the reason why we were targeted in the first place was because they wanted our children who were homeschooled to go to the local school to increase the enrollment. So, I mean, I've, you know, fairly similar experiences. I can see where you're coming from, but what surprised me, what surprised me was that people didn't stand up, and that even the people, like even the guy who was delivering food to us, organic food to us each week, and I asked him, I said, you know, Cliff, I said, is this true? Is this true about this guy, this farmer being a convicted pedophile? And he's like, oh yeah, you know, he paid his time. And you know what? A lot of women in town really like him. And then I found that apparently he'd fathered quite a few kids in the town. And then there was like there was almost a sense that the town was there to protect the secret and protect him. And,
because they'd be
and therefore to protect him and the secret, they had to get rid of us.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have any problems. And I remember seeing this one family, which I thought that they would be quite understanding. They were like kind of laughing and thinking, oh, I wonder if you'll find another house with you and your 10 children, and mocking us behind. And I thought I saw the very dark side of human nature. And then with Child Protection, which is kind of interesting, I said, oh, well, you know, where's a nice safe place to be, you know, because they were kind of saying, oh, you know, you shouldn't be, you're a fish out of the water living in this small town. And I asked them which safe place to be, and they kind of looked at me and thought, oh, you know, just nowhere's really safe. And apparently they like to put them in small towns and don't go near any town where there's a prison. And that was literally it. You know, that was their solution to the whole problem. At no stage did they ever touch the milk operation, the raw milk operation.
Well, I'm a strong believer that, as far as I'm concerned, DCJ, whatever you want to call them, Child Protecting Services, not a single person should be working for them unless they are a parent. I don't care how many university courses they've done, right? You would never, ever take a doctor on to do an operation on you if you found out he's only read the medical books, he's actually had no experience. You'd never see a motor mechanic that had no experience. You'd never hire a builder that had no experience. Yet, we put idiots in place, as I call them, barren bitches, in place on DCJ, and they get to call the shots, and yet they've never had children in their life. They have no idea on the dramas that some children can create, you know. And back in my day, they were always on the side of the parent. When this thing happened to me when I was 15 and nobody would listen to me, obviously things started getting out a little bit of control. All right. I had I have 4 siblings, 1 brother and 3 sisters. None of them wanted the bar of anything to do with me. And it got to the stage where CPS got involved. And because I said to the bloke I didn't want to come out there and talk to him, he's grabbed me, locked my arm up behind my back and knocked me face first into the floor. Mum said another thing about it. 2 weeks later, I found myself being moved from down here up onto the Hawkesbury River to my uncle's place. And when my grandfather found out about it, his reply about me having to move up there was a toss and oyster knife at me, which just missed my head and landed in a bloody gum tree. So I threw it straight back at him. He didn't expect that. But that was just the sort of crud I got. I had one uncle that would talk to me. Unfortunately, he's long gone. All right, and that was the bloke I moved in with. He was an old oyster farmer and fisherman, so he was a straight down to the earth. He called the shots as they saw it. And I told him what had happened, and there wasn't anything we can do. And one of the reasons why I got kicked out was, besides what was happening at home or the lack of support from at home, was I had an argument with my sisters one night when my mother went out, and my middle sister slammed the front door that hard that she broke a window. And then when Mum came home, they all turned around and went, he did it. So that was just another string to the bow for them to get rid of me. And to this day, that sister has not even apologised for doing that. And because of her doing that, literally every other relative in the family just went, he's out of control, he's got no hope, forget about him. And that's exactly where it's been for the last 40, 50 odd years, which is absolutely ridiculous, you know. And it all stems from the fact that the Navy allowed a pedophile in there, and now the Navy won't do anything about the bloody thing. I mean, how many other poor buggers has this happened to? You know, have any of the guys from up in Newcastle, from TS Shropshire up in Newcastle, have any of them tried to do the redress scheme over what happened to them with this bloke? Right? I mean, I've got his name etched in my brain. I've seen guys I used to work with in security I haven't seen for 20 years. I can't remember their names, but this bloke that I haven't seen in 50 years, his full name is etched into my brain in neon pen. And this was my chance to get some closure out of it. You know, at least try and put it behind me and shut everything down. But by the Navy doing this, or the ADF, or whoever the hell it was that made this choice, they've shown they've got absolutely no compassion whatsoever. They don't care what their members get up to as long as it doesn't occur on Navy property. I mean, I'm pretty sure the cops might have to say something if there was a copper in uniform going from one job to another job that pulled up and attacked somebody. If he's in a police uniform, he's still considered a member of the police.
So did this stop? Like, did the NDIS funding stop as a result of the government changes, or was it a result of after you threatened legal action? Do you think?
Well, they sort of coincided with each other.
They all converge together, so you can't really tell the difference between what it is.
I wouldn't be surprised. I do know that the rejection for the redress came after we said to them, like, you told us you'd get back to us in 12 months. That was 18 months ago. Now you're telling us it's going to take up to another 18 months. Maybe we should go see a lawyer. There was no threat made. It was just said to them, like, if you can't sort it out, we'll go see a lawyer and we'll deal with it that way, which I think was a fair enough assessment, because they have literally been lying to me. They have lost the reports and made me go through them again and again and again and again, which is not much good for your mental health, going over the same things. Then they've just screwed us around on it. And then when the moment that we go, guys, you told us this time, then you told us this time, then you told us, now you're telling us this time. Might be better if we went off and seen a lawyer and see what they have to say about it. We get a thing from them going, your claim's been rejected because it didn't happen on Navy property.
So with the redress scheme, what was going to happen if it went through?
Okay, I feel like I can talk to that.
Yeah. Please.
So thanks, Stuart. There's just been so many things. If almost like you could say what can go wrong, will go wrong, has happened in this case, and that's why we're bringing it to you. I've been working on this this case as a counsellor for now nearly 4.5 years, something like that. He's lost his funding, but only for therapy, and he only wants therapy. This is the other problem with the NDIS. He only wants therapy, but they've rejected therapy. So there's still a portion of funding for the NDIS, but that portion of funding is meant for support work and other supports, but he only wants therapy in it because he can get a lot of it through Medicare. But the other thing is then they won't fund, it's a bit circular health-wise, they won't fund his health or his treatment for teeth. They won't fund his dentistry. They won't fund his anything related to his lungs with NDIS, despite the fact that that's part of his disability as well. So he's got COPD, emphysema, chronic asthma, all of these different things, and he's been rejected. He's had lots of problems with the local doctors, lots and lots of problems with the local doctors. So this is why we brought this to you, because this is a health thing. But I also wanted to mention a couple of things because I think it's relevant. And it's important for the listeners to hear from my perspective as a professional. I have been hampered at every turn to try and support Stuart in a trauma-informed way. I'm a trauma-informed psychotherapist and counsellor. And I've been trained and I've worked for over 24 years. And in all of my 24 years, I have never seen the likes of how he's been treated. It's just been absolutely atrocious. I feel like there's a lot of things that have converged all at once. So one could say, oh, you know, it's post-COVID, everything's broken apart. But it's all these really convenient things. But then also, if you argue with it, then you're a conspiracy theorist too. So there's all of these kind of problems that are kind of converging. So one of the convergence was at around the same time as COVID, Stuart decided he wanted to do something about the guy who abused him when he was a child. The other thing I want to answer your question from a professional. It takes the average person who's impacted by any kind of sexual assault, physical assault, or serious maiming throughout their childhood, the average person, it takes until 50. So, and I believe the government knows these stats. So this is why there's no statute of limitations around when you bring these things forward, because the average person brings them forward at about the age of 50, give or take, obviously a fair margin there. So Stuart would have been about 30 when the man passed on, and because this happened in the 1970s. And he's given me permission to talk about some of these things, but just to kind of break it down, but I feel like we need to go somewhere else as well. Trauma affects health.
Yes.
Trauma affects your DNA. Trauma affects your generalized health. This is why the government knows. This is why the redress scheme exists in the first place. But I think they underestimated people like Stuart coming forward, because this is from so long ago. They say, oh, how can you remember all of these details? Because this is what trauma does. You have flashbacks. But each and every person we have dealt with in all the government systems, so I'm going to name them. I think they need to be named. No More, the redress scheme itself, and there was all sorts of other different services. Some of them were better than others, but really they all lost files. They all lost our data. They didn't do continuity of care. I am the only person who's given Stuart continuity of care when these systems are set up to support you through the process of making the claim. Okay, so you make the claim, but you've got to come forward and then go to the redress scheme, but they tell you to go to all these different services. And then those services are meant to help you through to have a trauma-informed lens. Some of them are even trained counsellors. They did appalling. This is the problem. And so we've gone through all this process. It took 3 or so years to go through the process. But before Stuart even got into the process, he'd already been to other counselling. Then he found me. Then I've been painstakingly guiding him on the side through this process. Then on the end of this, then they didn't even like honour the claim. They didn't care about his time or my time that we'd spent on this. And we were effectively doing government roles, both Stuart and me, like saying, no, this is how it's meant to be. And he's got legitimate evidence, and there was police files on it, and there was a inspector involved in the previous, so supposedly the pedophile in this case, he was known to the police and either died in police custody or the police are aware of his death. So regardless, he was charged at some point, but we don't know for what, and we should have been advised about that because that then would have assisted his case. So the police should have assisted his case, but they didn't. So at each and every stage, the government has not supported us. They've not supported the claim, despite they say come forward. And I've been shocked and appalled because I've assisted other people, not through redress. This is the first time I've gone all the way through with redress, and I've been appalled at how Stuart has been treated. I can't believe it. So I've been vicariously traumatised by this process, yeah. And in addition to that, I want to talk to, we all have DNA, and so what Stuart started with was about his daughters and his children, you know, so like so he's got 3 kids, and all 3 of them have health issues. And I believe it's because, I mean, I can talk to this personally, but that's a kind of other kind of thing. I'm just focusing on professionally here. But I know personally and professionally, genes and DNA gets changed because of trauma.
Yeah.
Okay. And so Stuart's children have more issues than him.
Wow.
And they can't get NDIS properly. There's all sorts of other issues. We are talking level after level after level of trauma and medical and health and alternative health issues, like whether it's, you know, in Stuart's case, he's got dental issues, lung issues, you know, we're talking about, you know, issues related to his autism. You know, he's a fully functioning human being, but he just wants to be treated with some respect. Really, that's what it comes down to is listen to people, show some respect, show some understanding. Imagine yourself in Stuart's shoes. But most people, they just run a mile because they can't believe this story even exists. So they shut it down for themselves. But no one, and then it becomes the bystander effect. So Stuart's granddaughter got taken from his daughter inappropriately. So his family has even been targeted too.
And to go one step further, my oldest daughter came up to get custody of my granddaughter because that's what DCJ told her to do. She stayed up here for 2 weeks, spent over $5,000 up here, did everything that they said, and she had to go back to Victoria empty-handed. And now DCJ have turned around and claimed, first of all, they told her that, oh, no, you didn't get the kid because we found something out about your hubby, Jeff. Turns out what they found about Jeff was totally untrue because Jeff's never been in trouble. He's a country bumpkin type lad. Now they have changed it to turn around and say, oh, somebody rang up when Jade, just after Jade and Jeff got together, because Jade used to be with another bloke. She had 2 kids to the other guy, but he was an idiot, an alcoholic. So they split. But him or one of his friends rang up and told him that Jeff and Jade had sexually assaulted a girl. Now, I'm pretty sure that if somebody's been sexually assaulted, you're going to get the police involved and everybody else in court cases and stuff like that. But the funny thing was, no police were ever involved. There was no court cases involved. Nobody else came forward and said anything. DCJ didn't even approach my daughter, which would have been, 20 or 15 odd years ago. to ask her about any of this sort of stuff. It just seems to have popped up last month when Jade rang him up to find out how come she still has not got Haley back. And to make matters even worse, I've got another granddaughter whose mother is basically a meth head. And yet I reported her to Crime Stoppers because she's got 3 children, 10, 6, and my 4-year-old granddaughter. I reported her to Crime Stoppers and told them that she's dealing meth as well as using it, and there's 3 kids, 10 and under, in that house. Nothing happened. I told Lake Illawarra Police. Nothing happened. I spoke to a mental health counsellor. She's a mandatory reporter. She refused to do anything about it. And I spoke to Renee about it. And Renee, being a mandatory reporter, actually did do something about it and put in a report. And to this day, nothing has happened. Not a single thing has happened. So those 3 children are still living with a woman who deals in meth, and nobody seems to care about it whatsoever.
They seem to like to split good families, don't they? And not do the job of actually helping the families that need help.
Absolutely, but it's like everything has been reversed. So when the system could have made a better decision for his daughter-in-law, so they make the wrong decision. When the system is meant to make the right decision for his other daughter, they make the wrong decision. So it's like everything continually being flipped.
I mean, I don't understand how with NDIS. I mean, isn't it money that's allocated towards you? And surely,
it's pocketed. So no,
surely, if he wants counselling, he feels that you're the patient.
Yeah.
Well, that's what.
No, they cap it. They cap it.
Yeah, we were led to understand, like, once you get the money, you can use it as you see fit for stuff that will help you.
Yeah.
And what they do is they turn around and go, oh, no. You might think that, but actually, in reality, like I said, with the computer, one of the things I do is I like to play a game on the net called World of Warships. Right, blow up ships. Your brain locks into it because you've got to work out the speed of a ship, the trajectory, how far to aim your shells in front, the whole lot. I love the game simply because, unlike most blow 'em up games, there's no blood, there's no guts in this game. It's just like using robot ships. And it's great for my little Asperger's brain because I'm suddenly trying to work out all these calculations at once. And I run the computer through my TV. And all I wanted off them was a laptop because it's easier for me to use a laptop than it is for to use a notepad. And I knew that I could get a laptop cheaper than I could get a notepad. Yet I got told, no, you can only get a notepad. The notepad's no good to me. It will not do what I want it to do. I enjoy writing. I enjoy doing short stories. I enjoy writing out poetry and stuff like that. But I can't do a damn thing about that. So I literally sit at home all day long, look at a computer. Well, I can't really use that, can I, to do this? I got no mates that I can go out with. I've spent 4 odd years on this stupid bloody redress thing that has just dredged up all these memories, and I'm trying to deal with that, whilst at the same time I'm dealing with what's happening with one granddaughter, trying to sort out problems with another granddaughter. And then, you get in arguments with people up at the hospital simply because you're telling them not to assault your daughter. One of the reasons that nurse unit manager had to go at me was because I am not a nurse. But they applied a pressure point hold. I am a 2nd Dan black belt. I should be a 6th Dan, but because of security work, I couldn't get to a lot of the gradings. I have been doing martial arts for 30 years. I teach people those moves. But according to the hospital, I'm just a dickhead. Which I find absolutely unbelievable that these people can get away with doing stuff like that. To take my phone off me instead of turning around to me and going, mate, you can't take photos here. It's no longer allowed. You need to have permission from the hospital. I would have gone, fine, I'll delete it. But instead, the guy snatched the phone out of my hands, and that is theft.
So with the
I don't care what the coppers say. I've done security in... Sorry?
So with the redress scheme, what would have been the outcome that you would have wanted from it?
Well, if I'd gotten any comp power out of it, number one, I would have got closure. I would have had somebody in authority turn around to me and go, it happened, it shouldn't have happened, right? I mean, the money is pitiful compared to what happened. But at least if I got that money, then I would have been able to address my teeth problem, which means I don't like smiling at people at the moment because it just looks all, haphazard. It's one of those things. Most asthmatics my age, by the way, have false teeth by now. I'm lucky I've still got most of my teeth, but I've got the old amalgam fillings in a lot of them. But I could have sorted that one out. I could have sorted out some stuff for my children to make life a little bit easier for them so that they're not under all the stress. My oldest daughter has got Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Her daughter, her only daughter, has a brain tumour. I have a son who's got a self-inflicted medical problem, and because he was the one living with the method, so it's not hard to guess what that is. And then I've got the youngest daughter who had a misdiagnosed aneurysm, has had 2 more since then, went in the hospital last week, spent 4 days in hospital. On the 3rd day, they turned around and told her that if she still thought she had a problem, she could go to Randwick. The day after that, they told her she thought she had a problem, she can go to a psych ward. And then when we got her home, we gave her 2 cups of Ural, and the next morning she was 50% better, which leads me to believe that she had a bloody UTI. And yet after 4 days, the hospital did nothing. Not a damn thing. In fact, she went there by ambulance and they put her in the waiting room. I thought the first thing they would have done, seeing as she's already had 1 big aneurysm and 2 smaller ones, the first thing he would have done was check her out to see if she's had another aneurysm. And the fact that she'd go off to see him for something and then come back out and then straight away ask me, when do I have to go in and see him? You're going, you just went in and seen him, darling. That's signs of dementia if you're not remembering stuff like that. So the first thing they should have done was, have we ever checked for a UTI? But no, they don't. In fact, we got home at 11:30 at night. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call off her telling me that she thought she was passing away. And all I could hear the nursing staff in the background was yelling at her, telling her not to be so stupid and to stop ringing me. That is not how you talk to somebody who's having a bit of a meltdown, right? Chris has a big problem with that hospital because that's where her mum died. When her mum passed away, there wasn't anything they could really do for her, so they refused to put her in the ICU. Instead, they left her on a ward floor with 3 other patients right at the entryway on the right-hand side. And me and my kids had to, for 9 days, do day shift and night shift because the hospital didn't have enough staff to look after her. And she was on one of them stupid bloody BiPAP machines, the breathing machines. So everybody coming in to see all their friends or walking through to see their friends, see my wife laying like that. She had no idea what was going on. And the girls were doing 9 in the morning till 9 at night. And then me and the son were doing 9 at night till 9 in the morning. We did that for 9 days until she passed. And not once did we get any help from that bloody hospital over it. And as a result, my daughter does not like that hospital anymore. I mean, the number of people I've spoken to where things have been misdiagnosed from that hospital is Wollongong. Right? Seriously, they're as useless as ticks on a wall. The granddaughter that's got the brain tumour at the moment is now 15. When she was a young baby, her mother brought her up to Wollongong Hospital and said there's something wrong with her. Doctors kept looking, going, nothing wrong, and sending her home. And the kid just kept crying and getting worse and worse. Eventually, one of the other doctors up there said, well, have they done an x-ray or a scan of this area? And my oldest daughter went, no, they haven't. So he said, we'll do a scan and we'll have a look. So he did a scan and they found a massive abscess on her hip bone, which none of the other doctors, if they'd done a damn scan, they would have found it. But they couldn't be bothered because as far as they were concerned, no, I've had a look. Yeah, I know what's right. The problem we've got nowadays is a lot of these people come out of the university as a doctor and automatically say, I'm a doctor, therefore I am 10 times better than you are, scumbag. Instead of realising you're a doctor, mate, you've got a job to do. The same as the motor mechanic has a job to do. The same as the refrigeration mechanic has a job to do. The same as that nurse over there has a job to do, right? You can't just talk yourself up and think you're better than anything, If you were going to a motor mechanic that kept on screwing your car over, you would not go back to him after a while. And yet we're expected to go to these hospitals and cop stuff like that. The stuff I copped last week off these guys, that nurse unit manager had no right to steal my phone. The security guards had no right to surround me the way they did. They were breaking the law there because you've got to give somebody their personal space. I speak from 30 years experience in security on this, okay? Even though I'm only 5'10" and less than 70 kilos, I spent 20 odd years working in pubs and clubs around here. and I have dealt with all sorts of people, and they had no idea what the hell they were doing. All they were interested in is puffing out their chest and showing you how tough they were. To the degree that I turned around to one of them and said, geez, I still wish I worked in pubs and clubs, mate, because I'd love to see it when you came in one night. You know, I'd have him out the door before he'd even had a chance to sit down. But nobody gets into trouble for it. I went to lodge a complaint, got told, nothing we can do about it. So the fact that they've got a nurse that's a thief doesn't worry him. The fact that they've got security guards that try to intimidate, threaten, and harass people doesn't worry him. The fact that they have nurses who assault patients doesn't seem to worry him.
Do you think,
As I said to the guy,
do you think, Renee, that the reason why it doesn't worry them because they feel as though Stuart is not someone that would sue them?
Yes, I'm different.
I think it's multiple angles. This will open up something else, and I'm sure we're going to have a conversation about this another time. I've personally had lots of issues with Wollongong Hospital. It's known. They've been sued multiple times by multiple people. There's been women die in childbirth and nearly die in childbirth. All sorts of things have happened in Wollongong Hospital. We need to expose it.
Pardon me. I know a woman, when I took Chris up to have her aneurysm checked by her neurologist, I was speaking to a woman from Nowra whose daughter went in for a simple operation and ended up having her uterus removed.
Yep, things like that.
Wow.
So she was then in the process of, her and the daughter were in the process of then suing Wollongong Hospital over it. Because her and I were talking about it. I took
the other end of it. I mean, you really want it not to happen in the first place, right? So what is the redress scheme? Just quickly, I don't want to forget this, but with the redress thing, is there an appeal? Is there a way of appealing the that you were rejected?
There's a slim possibility. Yes, you can appeal, but it's complicated, and unfortunately, at this stage, for Stuart, he might not get the appeal up because of how they came to the conclusion that they did, and because the findings that they had, they can argue that it's technically accurate. So one of the biggest problems in the law at the moment is there's so many technical arguments being happening in the law that the evildoers are getting away with things.
So the main argument being that it didn't happen on site.
Yes.
Well, it didn't happen on Navy grounds.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the totality of their argument? But surely it happened in Australia, right?
Yes.
It happened in Australia. He was in a naval uniform. The first time I seen him engaging in this sort of conduct was at HMAS Albatross in the dormitory there. Yeah. And that's why he came up the following week to see me to explain what it was that we had seen. And me, because I'm different, and at that time I was trustworthy of people. You know, I mean, I didn't actually see him having sex in the bed. What I saw was grown adult with young boy. Grown adult with young boy. That to me, in the same bed, meant there's something going on here, you know. But that was the sort of thing. Back in the 70s, you didn't talk about stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? You might know the guy down the road was gay, but everybody sort of stayed away from him. But they're using the argument that because it happened outside the Navy or outside of Navy premises, it didn't happen on Navy premises, then therefore I've got no case. But the guy had left the Navy where he was working at. He'd left HMAS Albatross. He was driving to TS Shropshire in Newcastle. He was wearing his full naval uniform, and he wanted to talk to me about what had happened at the naval station the previous week. So to me, they're all connected.
It's ridiculous. Like it's just an excuse to just flick the case off and say goodbye.
I would love to get in a room with these guys.
I mean, I just wonder what do you think, Renee, is the way forward here? Like how we move this forward.
Stuart wants to expose this. This is kind of why we're here.
Right.
So
they're going to do this to somebody else, and somebody else is going to even go off worse than me. Right? They're going to turn around, grab something, go down and see him, and probably beat the crud out of them. And I will not blame them in the slightest for doing that, because these people are jerking around with people's lives. Yeah? I thought this was all dead and buried. but somebody bought it up in early 2020. Okay, and that just opened up the floodgates. And then I got given the name of, actually, it started off with Relationships Australia, who then put me in contact with No More, who then ended up putting me in contact with somebody else, who then ended up putting me in contact with Renee. And it was Renee who got most of the story out of me and said, well, yeah, we need to do the redress scheme. That's what this scheme is for this exact sort of thing. And I thought, great, finally, I can get some closure on it, because it's been buried for half a century. And whilst the wife was alive, things weren't too bad, because she was the little center of my universe. She was my yin to my yang. But then after she left, things started going apart. I had nobody I could sort of rely on. And then when this all came up, things got even worse. And I had to keep on dredging up bits and bits. As I said to Renee quite a few times, I'd come in here and I'd had really bad dreams, or I'd remembered something that I thought I had totally forgotten about. Like I didn't even remember it when I thought I'd told her everything about it. Things like I forgot that he photographed me, right? Totally forgot about that altogether. Didn't really tell Renee about him chasing me around the streets of my suburb for a couple more weeks. Because you can't, it all comes back in bits and pieces and bits and pieces.
But it's still obviously stored in your body still, because your children received.
And the more you bring it forward, well, the more you bring forward, the more the picture builds, until eventually you got a full-length movie running through your head about exactly what happened that you thought you'd buried 50-odd years ago. And then you think you're going to get closure out of it. You think you've done everything right, despite these people losing your files, having to redo your file again, having to redo the report again. Then they lose, then you have to redo it again. Then they want something else, and you got to redo it again there. Then you get told it's going to be 12 months, you'll know the answer. Then that 12 months becomes 18 months, becomes 2 years, becomes 2.5 years. And then they turn around and go, oh, by the way, it was unsuccessful because it didn't happen on naval grounds.
So, Renee, I just have a quick question, just because I'm thinking about is, why do you think, from your professional experience, why do you think 50 is the magical age around thereabouts before people get to this point?
So there's I guess there's layers to this. And that's just recent new trauma-informed psychotherapy and counselling knowledge about this. So there's a lot of research in the trauma area about the average age someone comes forward. It's usually because you started raising your kids and then issues happen with your kids. Then your kids grow up and then things might happen with your own kids, right? And
so it's a mirror.
This is what's happening.
Yeah.
It's a mirror. Yeah. So then there's all these things that happen, and then things happen with the next generation, and then you might have tried to sort it. So this has happened in a lot of my clients' cases. You try and sort it, you try and bury it or whatever, but with such serious situations that Stuart is talking about, such serious abuse and misuse of power, really serious misuse of power. The problem in this country, I keep coming across, is serious misuse of power. And that's what we need to tackle more than anything else. This is my perspective. I've spoken to so many people, thousands of people over a 24-year period, and I see the themes. I actually, work with a lot of system problems, and I see the themes, and the themes are often linked to serious misuse of power.
It seems to me that the whole process has traumatized you more, Stuart. The obviously
it's killing me, man. I do not sleep properly at night anymore. Yep. I don't eat properly. If I'm having problems with the kids, this thing will probably pop up into my head again, because what happens is I'm like, well, if they'd honoured their agreement with the redress scheme, maybe I wouldn't be having this problem with the kids, because maybe I would have been able to help them out a little bit. I've always been broke my entire life. I've managed to bring up 3 kids. They were all asthmatics. Managed to sort them out, get them to school, get them the stuff. Never bought them Nike or Adidas because we couldn't afford it. They got Dunlop and stuff like that. But they were always well fed for, cared for, the whole lot. And then it was only in the last few years, like I said, after Karen died, that we had enough trauma beforehand. I mean, my old man, like I said, sacked me 2 weeks before Christmas because I had asthma. Now, I had a doctor's note giving me 2 weeks off, but I refused to take the time off because I knew he'd get upset about it. Then when he found out about it, he sacks me. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. And at the time I got told there wasn't much I could do about it. So, yeah, nowadays I'll probably be able to do way more about it. But then that put me off onto the dole for 3 months, and I was desperate for work. So I ended up getting a security license, and like I said, at 68 kilos and 5'10", I went off to work security in pubs and clubs. And I don't know if you've been down in the Wollongong area, but that day leaguers and Shell Harbour worker back in the mid-90s, and North Wollongong pub weren't exactly the places you go if you were shy of heart. Let's put it that way. All right. Yeah, the only reason I did that was so I could feed my family, so I could keep a roof over their heads. You know, that kept me, and that was busy enough. You know, I used to work night shifts all the time. I'd be working anywhere from a 8-hour shift through to a 16-hour shift. I had to deal with people with knives, with glasses and stuff like that. So that kept everything buried on me. I had no real dramas there. But then when work all finished, when our little, the problem happened in Sydney where I had to go at the bosses for not fixing up a yard that was allowing kids inside that could actually fall 4 stories and break a neck or kill themselves. I get sacked out of that one. So that left me sitting at home doing nothing. And then 2020 arrived with all of its wonders and stuff.
So did you feel that 2020 with the restrictions and the lockdowns, did that trigger you? Is that what was that?
I think that's what did it, because I couldn't go anywhere. All of a sudden I was being told, oh, you can't go off and get a haircut. You can't go off and buy undies, but you can go down to the bottle and buy grog. And I'm like, that does not make, I have a logical brain, a bit like Mr. Spock, right? That does not make sense. If I can go in and buy beer, why can't I go get my hair cut? Why can't I go in and buy a pair of undies? Yeah? And then we find out later on that all the things like masks and social distancing weren't even based on any medical or scientific evidence whatsoever. Turned out to be a load of BS from one Mr. A. Fauci. Even he's admitted it. Although mainstream media over Australia will never show you the videos from the subpoena hearings in America. You find them yourself online. But that is what started it all off. Then there was a couple of problems with the kids because they were really missing their mum. It was about 5 years after their mum had passed as well. And Karen was really great for that. One of the problems of being autistic is you cannot just walk up and put your arm around somebody, right? You can't walk up and just hug somebody. If somebody walks up to me and hugs me, I'll go stiff as a board. Karen was the only one who could do that. And Karen was the only one who could if the kids have a problem, my answer is like, what's the problem? Tell me what the problem is, we'll sort it out. Whereas Karen would do the motherly thing and go, look, come here, let's have a chat, find out what's going on. I can't do that. So I got hold of Relationships Australia, have a yarn to them about it. And somebody brought up something or other, and it triggered what happened to me at 15. And then from there, they put, well, you need to talk to somebody else. So they put me on the no more. And like I said, from there, eventually I found Renee and explained it to her. And she's like, no, that shouldn't happen. But by then, it was already running back through my head again. I said to Renee quite a few times, I'd love to find out if this bastard's still alive. I said, because I will drive up there and I will drive him into the ground, for what he did to me. And he got away with it. And now he's getting away with it again. And the Navy is condoning this sort of behaviour. Because what's to stop somebody else, whether they're a seaman, whether they're an officer, doesn't matter. But they now know that even if they're in full uniform, as soon as they're off Navy property, they can go and become pedophiles and do what they bloody well like because the Navy won't do a damn thing about it. And that is wrong.
It certainly puts a dark cloud around the whole Navy, military, Air Force, doesn't it?
Well, what do you expect? I mean, geez, the Army's just announced a woman as the leader and she's never had combat experience, but she's DEI and we know how important that is.
If I can just, say a couple more things, because I know that, this has been quite a conversation for you to probably even hear yourself, Jeannie, because I've gotten to know Stuart over some time being his therapist, and he's given his full permission to be on here, because I think that's important that the listeners hear this, because I don't normally come forward with anything like this, but Stuart is desperate to kind of get his story out.
Yeah, I hope it gives you some pleasure that people are able to watch this and you know,
Yes,
you'll
yes,
and be heard. I think it's so important to be heard and to be seen and acknowledged.
yes,
The pain
yes.
But
you've gone
the
through.
worst bit is you see these ads in the paper. Did you go to such and such a school in the 1960s? Did this happen to you or did this happen? Please come forward. We're launching a class action and stuff like that. And they all seem to carry on and get what's done. And yet people that have been sexually abused by government departments, which is basically what the Navy is any bloody way, get told, no, you don't have a leg to stand on. You know,
That's one
I
question.
mean, yeah.
Renee, I don't know if you know, but was the Royal Commission into child sex abuse, did it cover the Navy?
Yeah, it covers everything, everything. So institutional abuse means
Yes, I'm not sure it would cover the religious ones. I was sure there was one
yes,
that
it
it did.
does.
Did it? So
It does, but generally they won't pay out directly. So what happens is redress personally is meant to support Stuart.
so that
And
redress
it's
came
meant to
out of
pay.
that, the Royal Commission, is that right? Do you know?
Yes, that's it.
So the Royal
Yeah,
Commission, we had this whole big Royal Commission,
yes,
and then
yes,
redress came out of, which was this program
yes,
that's supposed to
yes,
support people like
yes.
Stuart,
And so
and now
there's
it's just
different.
continued
Yep.
to traumatize him even more.
Exactly. So there's kind of, I guess what I'm saying is there's different funding pathways, right? So that then effectively there's the redress, and redress will forward someone on. Say if it was the Catholic Church, you can go direct to the Catholic Church. Whereas in a case of the government departments, you're meant to go direct to redress because that is this is a governmental thing that happened. You know, so he was working on like with the government as a an apprentice or a trainee.
He was a naval seaman,
Yeah,
and I was a naval cadet.
Yeah. So so there's all of these layers to this because of where they're saying one thing and doing another.
Yeah,
that's what's happened. What's going
well,
on.
it seems like everyone else
basically,
is
if you're
getting
a
paid
sailor
except the client, right? Everyone else is getting paid. The therapists are getting
Yes,
paid.
this
The system's getting
this is
paid.
this is the
public
point.
servants are getting paid, except you're
Absolutely.
not getting the
Exactly.
benefit. And
Exactly.
same with NDIS, right? Everyone's making billions of it, except
Yep.
the clients at the end, and we've
Yes.
and most of those are making billions of it. Shouldn't even. Yeah, we've got
There's
no
another
clients.
obviously issue, like is where we don't even know how many people have suicided because of the system.
Exactly. And the other thing is the research is in about epigenetic problems as a result of serious trauma like this. So epigenetic problems should be seen as up there because like Stuart's family is in dire straits because of all of the issues, and then he's not able to properly support his kids because of being additionally traumatized by this. Even just you sitting with us is helpful, and this will be good for him to take forward as evidence of how badly he's been impacted because of their ineptitude, and let's call it negligence. It's negligent.
And your
of the
kids
government.
and your grandkids are being traumatized even more. I mean, it's so
Exactly.
awful. Like
Well, listen,
I feel completely awful for you. I had never really considered before the generational effect, because as you say, often in life people just go on with their lives because that's what you do in your 20s and 30s. You get married, you get children, and
it does have a big impact. If your kids come up to you and go, "Oh, I think that guy down the road's a bit gay," you get caught in a quandary, because I sort of been there, done that, know what happened to me. So do I automatically assume that the gay guy down the road is going to be the same as a bloke that got me? Or is he going to be like one of the other guys I know that actually fully transitioned into a woman? But that guy that fully transitioned into a woman does not want anything to do with this new LGBTQA plus whatever the hell it is. Right? A lot of people, like, we'll call him Megan, as his name is now, right? They still want just the LGBT community. Most of them have got no time with these other people. It's like it's a totally different branch, that's derived away. And
that's another huge conversation there. We could just have
it's almost
at the highest levels. of the medical system that is being pushed.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
of the system. So it's.
I mean, these
So
people,
where would you like to finish and conclude here? I mean, I know it's sort of gone on for. It's really good to hear your story.
I
But
just
I'd like
want
to sort of
closure. That's
close. I
basically,
just wanted to close tonight and say today, and just sort of say, what would you like to? Both of you would like to say now that we've covered most of it. And I encourage you to sort of document it if you want to at some point. You know, I really do hope that you get someone out there will take the baton here and
well,
go
that's it. Trying
to
to
bat
find
for you,
somebody
whether
to
it's
take the
some
baton
politician
up.
sees it or we can send it
Yeah.
across and people will, you know, share this story.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath for a politician, seeing as they ran the biggest pedophile ring in Wollongong at one stage. So they're sort of off the limit. What I would like to do is, I mean, you can't keep on treating people like this. I have been told for 4 years, yes, you have a case. Yes, this should not have happened. Yes, you deserve this. And I'm thinking, well, that's great because then I can do, like I said, my teeth, I can sort out some stuff for the kids. We can just try and just get ahead a little bit and pull ourselves up out of where we are. And then to be turned around and told, oh, no, you don't qualify because it didn't happen on Navy grounds is just absolute and utter BS. And I would dearly love to meet the people that made this decision for a face-to-face and just see how they will go telling me to my face that it did not deserve, that I don't deserve anything or any sort of closure out of this at all. Yeah.
It was pretty bad, the letter that we got into. It was like, dear Stuart, but it was so bad that no one even put their name to it.
So that seems very common though today, though, don't you think, Renee? No one wants to own up to the decisions.
But so there's literally no one who will own that they made this improper decision. They actually even acknowledged it happened, but that they can't do it because of all these technicalities. And that he could appeal. But the problem is, as his therapist, I always have to recommend no appeal. This is important for all the viewers to hear and all that, is because it will rip him apart again. Yeah. It's actually recommended now not to. What I want to appeal to everyone who's listening to this, if anyone has been impacted by the Navy, by pedophilia or any kind of sexual harassment or sexual assault, I think Stuart needs to meet with those people, contact him through me. You can find me, Renee
put your
McDonald,
details
on there. Just Renee McDonald for the sake of this. And we need to actually come forward with this as potentially a class action or something like that
they
later
need to change how they do the whole system. As far as I'm concerned, if you're attacked by a person who works in an organisation, it does not matter whether that happened at that organisation or somewhere else. The fact of the matter was he left the Navy yard. He drove up to Wollongong where I was at the Naval Cadets. I was in a Naval Cadet uniform. He was in his able seaman's uniform. He then lied to me to get me into the car and then attacked me once we got out of Wollongong. Okay, and then he continued on his way to Newcastle where he would be doing more work for the Navy. So as far as I'm concerned, he was moving from point A to point B, still in work. Right? I don't care if he didn't go to the Navy till the next day. The fact is he drove back up to Newcastle because he had to be at TS Shropshire the next day. Right? So it doesn't make a difference to me. The guy was still in Navy uniform. He just left the Navy base. We'd already busted him and his mates on a Navy base, turns out trying to have sex with each other, right? Although, like I said at the time, I didn't see anything, but when you look back on it, why else would a grown male be in bed with a young male?
Just absolutely
right? An underage young male. Yeah, that's
I think we can say that I think we say even the excuse is just outrageous. You know, we don't even really need to argue that. I know that's the legal point, but it's just absurd and it's wrong, and we need to do so much better as Australians. We need to bring this forward because if this isn't the Navy and if this is the military, I mean, this goes all the way to the top. I mean, what sort of
Absolutely.
country?
This is what we're
sort
talking.
of country are we living in? And
Absolutely.
these,
Yeah.
and to me, it seems wrong is that all of these programs have been put in place to help you.
Yeah.
I mean, thank God
Unless
you've
you
got
need help.
Renee. Thank God you have found Renee. But imagine if you had the support from the whole medical system, it would it would be amazing, right? And obviously the money's
Yes.
there, but it's not.
Yeah, I have no
the
doubt that if
people
I
are being
gotten the
quite
help when I was,
abusive.
well, I've no doubt if I gotten the help when I should have gotten the help in the first place, then this would have been, my life would have been totally different. But the result of this was ended up with me being caught alive for accusing of being a gay guy, a pedophile, me getting kicked out of Wollongong because I was upset that nobody would listen to me being accused of stuff that I have never done, and then me being ignored by my entire family for the next 50 years. You know, it's beyond the joke. I have sisters that have had a 50th and 60th birthday. Well, I don't get an invite to them, do I? You know, I don't
Well,
see
I hope your
any
family
of
will
my...
hear your story and maybe they'll listen and have some compassion for you because it's, I mean, maybe people can change.
If I had the money, I'll go back through, I will go through the courts. But I don't have the money to be able to do that. And if I lose, I've got no way of paying the money back. Yeah, the only asset I own is my car. And about 2,000 books, but books obviously are worthless nowadays.
Yeah,
you know?
but I feel like I need to bring it to the attention of the listeners too, just to almost to wrap this up for your sake as well, Jeannie. Just bottom line is, there's a lot of collateral damage, and we need to use these legal terms. So the legal term is collateral damage. So the government has actually caused collateral damage in Stuart's life as a result of not actually adhering to their own guidelines about the redress. And on top of that, they've caused collateral damage as a result of the initial abuse. And then that has caused collateral damage in Stuart's life, fallen down almost like dominoes into his kids and dominoes into the whole. It's basically a mess for him that it's almost hard to clean up. And then his children suffer and his grandchildren suffer. And all of these people in the government that are meant to have supported someone like Stuart, the problem is people don't understand about trauma informed. So what this means is often Stuart is stuck in fight. Unfortunately, when you're stuck in fight, so there's fight, flight, faint, freeze, flow, and fawn, like there's others as well. But like basically, you know, and in the window of tolerance, he's usually not in window of tolerance. So we've talked about that before. You know, but you know, Stuart is an amazingly resilient and surviving kind of a guy, but it's really hard to support anyone else when you're going through this process, let alone children that need his support because they're disabled now because of all this other mess. And so there's just a multitude of collateral damage and dominoes that's happened in his life as a result of people not listening in the first place. So the bottom line is, to everyone out there, listen to family members when they come forward, but also listen to other people too. And we need to gather together about these kind of cases because it's just not on.
Yeah, and we do need to heal as a families and and as a community. So I really thank you for sharing your story today, Stuart.
No worries. I hope some good comes out of it.
And
if anybody knows anything else I can do about it, please let us know.
Yeah.
I mean,
we can only put it out there and see what happens. You never know who will watch it and where things will go.
I just wish I could bring my brain up to their brains and give them a dose of what I go through all the time. You know, guarantee they wouldn't be able to handle 10 minutes of it. You know,
so we'll put,
so
we'll put it on healthallianceaustralia.org. The video when it's finished, I think it'll be most likely just BitChute and Rumble. I think YouTube would probably strike us straight away, but that's okay. YouTube's actually been pretty horrible for the censorship anyway. And I'll put your contact details there for people to reach out to you. Let's hope something good comes from it. And it's really,
I hope so. It's just not fair. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the kids, and it's not fair to other people who've gone through the same crud that I have, and just to be screwed over by a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
99% of them need to be sacked and have their wages shut in half.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm really
I mean-
sorry for all that you've gone through.
That's
Stuart.
okay, Judy. It's not
the
your fault.
initial-
I just
It's
like
not
to
just the
thank you for
initial
taking
act,
the
it's just
time to
the
listen.
abuse that's happened after.
Yeah.
Often the secondary, the tertiary abuse
Yeah,
seems to
absolutely. It's the
be a lot
secondary and
worse
tertiary. It's like the,
than
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope, thanks everyone for watching today. Stick around after, I'll just end the recording.
yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.